Hi, everybody. It's Marcella here. And I have Mary Sheila Gonnella with me, who co-teaches with me in the Women Food and Forgiveness Academy. And Mary Sheila is a holistic nutritionist and an Ayurveda practitioner. And today we're going to just talk a little bit about Ayurveda. So, Mary Sheila, hi.
Hey, Marcella.
Hey, tell us a little bit about Ayurveda and what it is.
So Ayurveda is the science of medicine from India, and it actually translates to the science of life, and it's over 5,000 years old. And the really amazing thing about Ayurveda is that the main focus of it is on food as medicine and as self-care. So those two aspects together really put healing in our own hands to take action to heal the body.
Oh, I love that. It puts healing in our own hands. Great. So what are some of the basic principles of Ayurveda that you feel like the women in the academy should just acquaint themselves with?
So Ayurveda is a science based on the elemental theory, and that is the elements of ether, air, fire, water, and earth. And it's very similar as Chinese medicine is in the sense of looking at the body. And it takes into account the elements that are in our environment, and those same elements are in our body. So we've got ether, which is space, right? So there's places in the body where we have space. And that is similar to, just even our connection in the ethers with our spirituality. We also have air, right? We have air in our environment. Air is vital and critical for life. Air is our first food. And, air is helping to nourish all of our tissues. And even using the breath is a way to make contact with the nervous system. So there's a big connection there. Then just like the environment, we have fire in the body, right? We have fire, we have the sun, fire that warms everything, fire that can sometimes get out of control. And we have our digestive system that actually turns our food into us, right? So that requires our fire, which we call our Agni in Ayurveda, to do that transformation. And we can also just even look at a cellular level. Every single cell has little engines that keep the cell going and helps with the cellular metabolism, and that's called our mitochondria. So we have fire all the way down to the cellular level, and all the way to the fact that we're warm, or when you breathe air in, it comes out warmer than it did coming in.
Oh, wow. And then there's water, and then there's earth.
Exactly. So then there's water, right? So just like our planet Earth, right? We know that Earth is about 70% water, and so are we. And we have all of our waterways that bring nutrients to all of our cells, and then also help us to eliminate waste out of the body, just like rivers and oceans do the same thing on the earth. And also our entire immune system is a watery system as well. And then we have, just like the earth, our body, all those elements are housed in the body. So our structure, actual physicalness, is the earth. So all of those elements are in there, and they're working together. And just like there's seasons and there's dry spots on the planet and wet spots, right? It's all works together. And our job, as the humans, is to try to keep all those elements in balance and in their proper place, right? Just like we don't want a forest fire to rage out of control or a flood to flood everywhere on the land. We want to make sure to keep the elements in place in the body. And that's really when we can kind of say we have the seat of health. We're in good health when all the elements are doing their job, they're in their place, and that's a great way to think about the elements in the body.
And then there's also in Ayurveda what we call the doshas, right? Where like the elements combine in different ways constitutionally. So some of us are predominantly more earth, or earth and water, or water and fire, and so on. So can you say a little bit more about that, about the constitution?
Yeah. So if you've heard about Ayurveda before, you probably heard that people are called Vata, Pitta, Kapha. Mm-hmm. And before it really settles in and you really understand it, you might have heard it, it made sense, and then you're like, I can't remember if I'm vata or pitta or kapha, because it gets a little bit confusing. But basically, we have all of the elements in our body. They're all housed there. But when at conception, the combination of the sperm and the egg, so our father and our mother, creates who we are. So our constitution is set right at conception. And that basically means that either our ether, our air, our fire, water, earth, something is going to be a little bit imbalance in our life. Like we're going to have to work harder to keep those elements in balance. So somebody who has more vata has more of that air and ether, okay? And so they're more airy in general. They're more airy. So something that's more airy, think about like maybe something like wisping in the wind, right? It might be drier. It might be thinner. It might be more heady, thinking more, maybe more organized and detailed because they've got all that thought going into something. And then there's also water and earth are what make up pitta. I'm sorry. Fire and water is what makes up pitta. So the element of fire and the element of water make up the pitta. So that is digestion, right? So sometimes somebody that has a lot of fire and earth usually has fire and water,
right? For pitta?
Yeah, has pretty good agni, pretty good digestion. Almost sometimes that might be so good, they might even have loose stools because things are really hot. Those people also might have a lot of redness or maybe even anger and inflammation and sensitivity to the sun. And that those elements of fire and water make up the pitta. Then there are the elements of water and earth, and that makes up kapha. And kapha, water and earth, what do water and earth make? Mud. So sometimes kapha can get a little stuck, might get a little stuck in the mud. And just the idea around our foundation, our structure, our body, and having that be a primary element might mean that you have naturally bigger bones. You might have naturally that water and earth, so that slower metabolism, that slower pace in your whole life in all things you do, right? So just to kind of come back to each one for a moment, right? So vata, drier, faster metabolism, quicker thinker, always thinking, maybe worrying. All that kind of dryness, that quickness can lead to things like constipation, or maybe even things that digestive stuff lower in the intestines that don't feel so good because there's more clenching, there's more worry. Pitta, fire and water, fierce, leader, hothead. That not that's what we say, right? Loves hot sauce and is prone to anger, is prone to looser stools, where this person might be holding, this person has looser stools, more inflamed, maybe more allergies, maybe more autoimmunity. Where we've got kapha. Kapha is caring for everybody, watching out for everyone. Kapha is the teacher, the mama hen. Kapha is also maybe more prone to allergies because it's connected more to the immune system, because our immune system moves through the watery channels of the body. So we all have each one, but at conception, usually one of them is more pronounced. And then there's always a secondary one. So the one that you're not tends to be the one that you have more control over, and that's not really an issue for you. Right? So in our life, again, if we just think about, even if you're like kapha, pitta, vata, which one am I? It's just about thinking too about the elements. Wow, I have edema. That is too much water that's kind of flooded into other tissues. I need to be mindful of that. Wow, I have a lot of very loose, uncomfortable stools. That's a lot of fire that I need to contain in my digestive tract. Wow, I have a lot of gas. I've got a lot of vata, too much air and ether going on in there. What's going on with that? So we look at it a little bit elementally, but we know that we always are we have all of it in our body. And just to say one more thing on this again, so think about if you're out in the wind, like even like if you're out in the wind, after a while, it's kind of irritating and you just need to get out of it, right? You get out of it and you're like, oh my gosh. But too much wind is going to dry things out. Too much wind might also make you kind of cold, right? As too much fire, right, can get too hot over too much time, and maybe too much wet can make you kind of cold. So another way of thinking about this is, am I cold? Do I feel too dry? Do I feel too hot? Do I feel too wet? And in Ayurveda, just like we each have a constitution, every being on the planet has a constitution. So, cucumbers are wet and cool, right? So if I feel kind of hot and dry, a cucumber might be a great remedy for me, right?
Got
If
it.
I feel like, gosh, I am really dry, like I'm dry and I feel cold to the bone, I'm going to be much better having a bowl of soup for breakfast rather than a cold, ice cold smoothie,
Yeah,
right?
right, right. Okay, so there's the 5 elements, and then there's those 4 conditions of um, hot, wet, what, cold, dry, hot, wet. So for the women who are coming into the academy, Mary Sheila, most of them are struggling with weight that they want to lose. That's been difficult to lose. Maybe they have high cortisol levels from stress, and blood sugar imbalances. So my sense is that these would be like kapha issues predominantly. So there might be like too much cold, too much wet, too much mud, too much water and earth together. So what are some of the general, like really, really broad recommendations or antidotes? And also I just want to say, you mentioned something about the 4 pillars of Ayurveda. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that relative to how to address like a kapha imbalance that would cause you to hold on to excess weight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that is generally when we're looking at weight loss, there's too much of that earth. And often, even in our fat cells, there's a lot extra water, and so we need to move that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so part of, one of the things, and one of the words I just said is movement, right? And movement is really helpful for like moving that earth. And you know kapha, people that have more kapha, they're like, yeah, don't tell me to go to the gym. Like, I know, right? It's not something that I love. Whereas a pitta person's like, I just rode 10 miles. I love exercising. It makes me feel so good. And kapha person's like, you know.
Forget about it.
Yeah, exactly. So, and this is one of the things we talk about in the academy is like, how else can you move? Can you, I know you did a video recently on salt scrubbing. Can you salt scrub? Can you dry brush?
Mm-hmm.
Can you jump on a trampoline or go for a 10-minute walk or 50, anything, any kind of movement? You want to move, right? If something is like stuck in the mud, you want to get things moving.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing I want to say that really stimulates and supports like the metabolism moving is spices.
Yeah.
Spices are huge in their ability to ignite. It's like adding kindling to a fire. Throwing spices in there, you're adding kindling to a fire. Another thing to do is, and this is something we talk about a lot in the academy, is I talk about meals versus snacks, which we'll talk about more, but also just how do you honor the rhythms of your body, of your internal body, right? Of your hormones. And then also how do you honor like the rhythms of the day, right? Because we're so connected to our environments, right? We're animals. And just like we have a constitution, right? And we've got our vata, pitta, kapha combination, even the day, like the morning is a little more kapha and the afternoon's more pitta and the evening's more subtle and vata. So we can honor that with even how we eat our breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Oh yeah. And we'll talk about meals in another video coming up after.
Exactly. But what I want to say, like in relationship to honoring our rhythms, when I talk about honoring our rhythms, I'm talking about honoring your hormones. And our hormones are not just our estrogen and progesterone, but insulin, so our blood sugar balance, and our thyroid, which is the seat of the metabolism, our pineal gland, which helps us to have a good night's sleep, right? So all of those hormones, they all have rhythms in the body, but there are messengers, and how they respond in the body is usually to our emotional needs, and also our physical needs, but it's very emotional. And one of the four pillars of Ayurveda is really saying that any kind of dis-ease in the body begins at a emotional level, right? So, especially if there is trauma or anything like that in your history. So there's emotional. So, because the emotion takes place and the body reacts to that emotion, and sometimes things can get stuck in different parts of the body.
Okay, so yeah, and this is where we have a couple of minutes here. I just want to do a little time check. But this, like what you're talking about, the emotional roots, this is where the tapping can really dovetail with bringing the emotional body into balance and bringing the hormonal body into
Yeah,
balance.
exactly.
So you are going to talk, we've got a couple of minutes here, so we can just talk very quickly about the four pillars
Yeah.
of Ayurveda. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the emotional is the first pillar, right? We want to address emotions because that's where the root cause of dis-ease in the body. Then we want to look to our food as our medicine, right? Before we're doing all these, supplements and things like that, food is our medicine. Then we look to nutrients or herbs, supplements, things like that. Then we look out to the outside source and we get support from a practitioner. But it's the emotions, the foods, then the nutrients, and then the support.
That's so great. As you're saying that about the four pillars, the emotions, the nutrients from the food that we're already eating, then the supplements, and then getting support from a practitioner. That is so radically different than dieting.
Yeah.
Like, that's so different. I mean, dieting is like some kind of a Band-Aid quick, what dieting is like, whatever that is. But this is really about learning a whole new system, learning a whole new, like, literacy is the word that comes to mind, a whole new system for taking care of yourself over the long term. And that as we put this system in place, our bodies find their naturally comfortable size. Our weight begins to regulate itself. We don't have to diet because we're taking care of things. We're not just trying to fix the weight problem, but we're really addressing the entire system, including the emotions. And as you know, as I know we've seen, Mary Sheila and I have been working in this way in the academy for a couple of years now, and we've seen a lot of success with women losing weight without dieting, feeling better emotionally, letting go of their traumas, and developing new self-care practices that, really can sustain in the long run. That's great.
And that really, they're loving to ourselves, right? And
Yeah, that's what it really comes
another
down
way to embrace the emotional piece. Mm-hmm.
So Mary Sheila, how do people find you?
So yeah, if you're in the academy and you want to do some one-on-one work to, uncover what's going on for you, and to be able to get more specific on what are the best foods for you or the best kind of eating for you based on whatever's, going on physically, reach out and we can set up a one-on-one time to talk and we can work together. And it's a great way to really make your time in the academy go a lot further.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really want to encourage everybody who's watching this to reach out to Mary Sheila if you really want more specific, detailed, individualized guidance on how you can choose the foods that are appropriate for your constitution, the health conditions that you're dealing with, and your lifestyle. Mary Sheila is a Fort Knox of all kinds of information. And stay tuned for the next video, in which Mary Sheila and I will talk about the difference between snacking and meals, and what is a meal, and how to make a meal, and how to eat a meal. Yay! All right. Thanks, Mary Sheila. Thanks so much. All right, cheerio. Bye.
Bye.